thing would be if we get that to Essery before Dan gets here. We need to push it back.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, well, I think what we'll do is get started though, because it's, like I said, it's not fair for people.
Hand out forms for me. Thank you.
So what we'll do, we'll call this finance committee meeting to order. And, we have one person that is gonna be a couple minutes late. Besides that, we're all here. So we'll call the order. First to the approval of minutes from December 10th of last year. Any changes or anything? Or did
You did a motion to approve first.
You wanna,
Motion to
Motion.
approve?
any changes or anything you saw? I didn't.
No.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is public appearance, non-agenda items. Anybody here?
I think they're all for agenda items.
Okay. All things here, okay. Next, number 4 is the finance director's report. Mr.
Yep, so property tax collection was quite busy for us. I thought that with the law change that we'd have more people taking advantage of the installments, but it turns out more people were paying the year before. So we collected almost $33 million this year through December 31st. Other years, it's been $27 or $28 million, so it's been quite busy. Other than that, in the packet, there is the 30% TID 9 audit. TID 9 is the Lacey Seminole intersection, so Sub-Zero, Promega, Hop House, Race Day, etc. Through December 31st of 2018, we had actually spent the 30% of the project plan from amendment number 1 that required us to do an audit. So it's nice to have that wrapped up, and it's in your packet for your review. We then, after that date, amended it again, so you'll see another 30% audit, possibly this year, maybe the year after, when we cross that 30% of the new threshold again later. And then also in your packet, during 2018, we did a review of the cash procedure at the municipal court, just to have another set of eyes on it, make sure our controls are really just as tight as they could be. You'll see they have a couple of recommendations in there, nothing really, nothing too big. One of them being that we should make sure that we have not a third party, but another person signing off on any adjustments, to make sure that those are true and have that documented. But they didn't find any issues with the ones that were done, but just make it better in the future. And then also getting a write-off policy through the finance committee and then getting them off of our books for ones that are considered bad debt. We've got some that are sitting out there for 20 years. At some point, we just need to write that stuff off. So those two things you'll be seeing, or the policy you'll be seeing sometime in the near future, and the other one we'll implement hopefully soon. So I wanted to bring that to your attention as well. I know we have a full agenda, so I will keep my remarks short.
Misty, you just spoke on it, A and B, on our forum, correct?
Yep.
You just, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Any questions or anything?
No.
Yeah, okay. Next will be review of bills. These are checks 10,000 and above. These are dated 12/1 of last year through 12/31 of last year. Total is $1,041,000. $1,041,035.49. Any questions?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to the next batch then. The next batch of checks, and I should read the numbers, they're 12/0051 through 12/0155. These are dated 12/1/2019 through 12/31/2019. This is $1,180,550.85. Any question about that?
No.
Okay, the next batch, the third batch of checks these are the ACH payments of 10,000 and above. These are dated 12/1. last year through 12/31 of last year, that total is $578,995.82.
No questions.
Okay. Then we'll go to the next batch. The next batch is review of all CH payments. These are dated 12/1/20 of last year through 12/31 of last year. This total is $528,028,028.70. Any questions?
No.
Now we've got two more. The next one is the P cards. The P cards, these are 10,000 and above. This is for the cycle ending November 6th of last year. That number is $157,228.91. Any questions?
No questions.
The last ones are reference the P cards for the cycle ending November 6th of last year. The total is $327,297.79. Any questions on that one?
No questions.
Okay. The next item, now we are into the action items. There's really, the first one is a discussion only on Fish Hatchery Road. The chairman put this on here, and I'll tell you, there's really, I don't think the two of you are gonna see any surprise. I'll tell you why I did this, and for staff too. The situation is, Fish Hatchery Road is, correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, but we're about approximately $20 million on the project.
22.
22 million on this project, and so it's gonna, I'm gonna be kind of short with it, because I may surprise you, but just so we don't have problems that when I was first elected, we had on Lacey Road. I think that when the project starts, and I'm gonna say May or in the spring, I'd like someone from the city get back to the finance once a month and report back to us what's going on. It can just be not formal, just informal. It doesn't have to be, just to let us know what's going on. I know what you're thinking, Pat, because I brought this up at the council level, and you may have already been on it, but I just think from my two partners on the right, I wanted to see what you thought, but I think we should stay on top of this baby, and, you know, you don't have to come every finance meeting, maybe just once a month when it starts, not until it starts. I'm not talking about now, I'm not talking about February, I'm not talking about March. This is a huge project. In fact, in my time living in Fitchburg, don't count for Road Road. But I think it's one of the bigger ones that we've ever had. And my thought was just to stay on top of it. Whoever's on finance, or if we have the same people, that's great. Is it something, Dan, maybe even you wanted instead of finance, but what's your thought about just staying, just being briefed on it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all about letting people know what the latest is. Of course, we've been advocates for trying to contain costs. And so, you know, I think in the Board of Public Works, you know, we definitely have had discussions. We get periodic updates, I would say. And same is true of this committee. I think we can do it for this committee as well on the financial end. Obviously, it's more bricks and mortar discussion in the Board of Public Works, you know, and here you deal with the financials. And then, you know, we can take some of it back to the council or under older updates, things like that. Much like we have with the comp plan, we've had, the mayor has done bi-weekly updates basically, or whenever we meet, basically, we have an update. And so I think you're sort of on the right track, Tom. There's no problem with that. I think updates are good and,
That's
and,
really all I had with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any big questions for you.
Okay.
So, believe me.
No, as part of our project, we have quite an extensive outreach program plan that we've got going. So what we've been doing is, each stakeholder group is a little bit different in their needs. You've got internal and external needs. This is primarily an internal need, and finance is specific. So whatever you would need to help you feel comfortable with decisions that have been made, or, whatever information you feel would be necessary to keep a handle on the financial policies of the city, or updates. We are doing weekly updates through construction. So you can pretty much refer to our weekly construction update. It's going to be similar to Verona Road, if you wanted to refer to that. But, it's really up to you.
How's your thought? That's good. But I think my comment's gonna be, if you just, when it starts, come maybe once a month to finance, and we'll put it on just like this. And if you could come, keep in mind too, it's also for the public to see and hear about. I mean, for those even watching or don't know, the road's gonna be reconstructed from the, I call it the belt line to PD, right?
Mhm.
So, I guess my thought was just to cross a T and dot an I, and if you just come once a month and don't come every time.
Mhm.
I hear what you're saying, you're gonna probably give updates. Was there a thought to give it to the council as well? Maybe not. I mean, maybe not. I'm not gonna talk
it's-
them into it.
It's one of the groups that we do have. It's our policy group. And then as part of the subgroups that we have is Finance, Board of Public Works, Planning, so everybody knows what the construction is going on. So each one has a little bit of a different need. Some are technical, some are financials, So it's really whatever each group needs is. And if you want to get back to me on that, that's fine, as to how you would like me to report out, but we can do that.
I'm kind of putting the ball in your court.
Okay.
Because I don't want to influence it.
Hmm?
I'm gonna tell you just to come with what you have once a month when it starts. And that may be in May or June or whatever. I'm fine with that,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah, and whatever adjustments we need to make from there is fine, so. All right.
That's fine.
And if they're not available, I'll be happy to provide the report.
That can work too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanna keep can you tell I wanna keep my hands on the pulse?
Yeah,
Without,
I think it could be as simple as a 1-minute update, just to say we're on track and we're on budget, and I think that's pretty much what we wanna know, it's pretty much what our,
Microphone.
Microphone, yep.
sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
I think it could be just as short as like 1 minute, we're on track, we're within scope, we're on budget. And I think that's probably what collectively everybody wants to know. And then if there are, details that affect, our citizens' abilities to get in and out of the city for work or play or otherwise, those updates I think will be helpful as well. In my experience, whenever you've got a major project like that, just to have that 1 minute of content goes a long way, so that if it starts slipping off the rails, that we know it's coming and we can start working on contingencies and be prepared as quickly as possible.
really, that's all I had with it. I thought about this today. One question I did have, and I think I know your answer. When the project starts, and it probably will go, correct me if I'm wrong, there's 2 lanes, it may go to 1 lane in both directions, or maybe just 1 lane southbound for a while and then northbound. I'm assuming we could use not only to tell the public, but I'm actually thinking about that board. What am I thinking of, this board that,
Changeable message sign?
yep, the message sign board,
Mhm.
just to let the public know.
Yep.
You're probably way ahead of me, but,
Yep.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, yes.
You know. And if you wanna put any Alder's name on it, put bars. So if there's anything. they can
Such a
call
good
me.
friend.
Yes, oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when construction starts, it's going to be late March, early April probably, when the frost is out of the ground. And Our plan is to move all the traffic over to the southbound lanes, so there'll be one lane in each direction, so you'll be able to have one lane in each direction going southbound on the southbound lanes. So that's what we're planning on doing. The Fish Hatchery Road plan, the sign, yeah, that's part of our plan too, to have those available. So we've got a whole host of things that will be rolling out by the end of the month for everybody to.
I know that we've got a full agenda, so I don't want to get into this conversation tonight, but I think it would be helpful some point just to appreciate what other significant road work we're gonna have at some future meeting to gauge. I know that we had a lot of things happening at the same time last year, and just to kind of prepare folks for what that means, I think would be helpful.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? That's all. That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Bill.
That's it. The next one, we'll move on. The action item, now we're on B. It's Resolution R 178-19, approving Second Amendment to the agreement for subdivision improvement in the plat for Terra Vesta.
And staff would like to recommend that we postpone this one to the next meeting. It's not quite ready. You still need an official motion to that effect.
Till our next meeting.
To the next
Motion to, yeah.
Motion
Yep.
to table for 2 weeks until the next finance meeting.
It's fine. I'm fine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is resolution, it's R 207-19, a resolution authorizing the 2020 through 2029 Nine Springs Golf Course Management Contract. Start in a motion.
So moved.
And then Misty or staff.
Why don't we start with Scott?
Yeah, just maybe a couple quick comments. The management contract, actually Dan Larson has been the manager since 2015. He is here, and certainly we're very satisfied with the service that he's been providing at the golf course. And to that point, it was kind of interesting at the Park Commission meeting. One of the park commissioner asked what the complaint policy was. How do you handle the complaints? And we both kind of look at one another and we go, well, we haven't had any complaints. So that's just kind of I guess an indication of the service that Dan's providing for us at the golf course. And certainly Dan has been a willing partner in providing park and recreational activities at the golf course since he's been there, which has really been helpful to our operation. So it's just a couple comments, I guess.
And so I do have one other, I'll call it kind of housekeeping item. So we would like to recommend that you guys add some additional language to this resolution before you approve it. First would be adding a whereas clause that says that the current contract, which was from 2015 to 2020, if I remember correctly,
Through 2020.
through 2020, was no longer sustainable for the prior vendor. And then add another therefore clause at the end that you are also terminating that prior contract with the vendor, as well as authorizing the new one. Basically just to make it very clear that we're terminating that old contract early, and then we're doing this new contract going forward. So I'd like, or you did that, so.
We'll do that, that's fine.
Excellent. The other piece of this one, then I guess if you don't mind, the cost came in $20,000 over budget. So included in this resolution are a couple of different options that I put together for you to consider on how to absorb that cost. The first one is the $12,500 of contingency funding that we have in the budget. It feels unfortunate to spend that in the first week of the year, but it's there, and that's what this would be for. And then the other two options that we provided are simply the ones that were discussed at the budget amendment discussion when we adopted the 2020 budget. So I didn't go back through the budget beyond that. I just went to the last time you guys really discussed it. So the two that we have in there ready for you would be not authorizing that additional 0.25 FTE for building inspection any longer, and then also removing some or all of that additional Healthy Neighborhoods funding that was added. So we put those three options in there, whatever council decides, whether it's one of those, a combination of those, or something completely different, you guys can choose. But you will want to amend out the ones that you don't want to include.
I would like to add to that, that our building inspector, John Crook, approached me today and offered to give up that position, given the situation we have currently in the budget. He did want to state, though, that he's going to come forth with a full-time position next year and hopes that this act of good faith doesn't go underappreciated.
You gonna take comments, or
Well,
is there public weighing in, or is there any public comments?
Did we get any forms from the people
There
that
were no
want to speak?
comments from the public.
I didn't have any, I just wanted staff to finish, I mean,
That's all I had, is the building inspector is willing to give that up.
okay, yeah.
Okay, so, I talked to the mayor, and of course, there's no guarantees what can happen, you have elections and things like that. But what he had suggested, that should he be reelected, and, you know, he's running unopposed, that would be something he would put into the budget, a position for the building inspection in his next budget, to, you know, as a remedy for losing the 1/4 position that's in the current budget right now, which is kind of unfortunate. I know that they've looked forward to it, wanted to get the ball rolling, but I think in the near future we'll have it. And that sort of solves our problem. It's not a good problem to have, but, you know, I can appreciate the building inspection department and their ability to work with us and offer that up. I think that's great, and we should prioritize it in the next budget cycle.
I agree. I appreciate him stepping up and making the sacrifice. I'm not certain that we were gonna see a massive amount out of it. I think it was more trying to make some progress in an area that there is a significant need, and trying to send a message to those folks that we see that and we get it, right? You know, but we need to find a way to make this math work as well, so.
With that position in Crux area, does that give us the money we need for this?
Yes.
That takes care of it.
The other thing I'd like to say, if I may, is just from a financial perspective, I think one of the other bigger lessons learned here too is that $12,500 contingency is probably not sufficient. Most other municipalities our size have at least 0.5% of your operating budget set aside for contingency, which for us would be in the $100,000 range. It's a hard thing to swallow, but that's exactly why you would have something like this, is so that if there's things that come up that are somewhat unexpected, you have that bit of cushion that you can still make things happen without dipping back into the discussion. So,
You know, I think, in my opinion, this particular budget process was challenging for a variety of reasons. We are growing significantly as a city, and to be able to bring on appropriate infrastructure to support that growth is a significant investment, right? I mean, we see these dollars coming through, they're not small, and it's amazing to me how by the time that we get to the end of that, and we pay our people. And by the time that we get to the end of that, and we pay our people, there's a shockingly small amount of money
Yep.
that's left. Yeah. We ready for action?
Well, it's a little bit of a sour pill for me to swallow, due to the fact that the part-time position under Crook, I fought to get. And did I hear you say that the mayor said that he may put this in his budget next year?
Yeah.
At full-time, part-time, no time?
You know, I don't wanna speak on his behalf, I know when we had the council discussion, he's gonna discuss it more, what he would plan to do.
Fair, okay, no, that's fair.
I'll say that, probably depends on how much money is available, Tom.
Yeah, no, that's fair. The pill I'm swallowing is the one I fought for, but I'll do it. So, if we take the position away from, building inspection, for the public to know what's going on here, it was a part-time position, quarter time, I guess it was, whatever it
Mhm.
was. We're taking that away to satisfy another position at the golf course where an individual was underpaid for the work that he was doing.
Contractually.
Would you, for his contract,
Well, just to add on that, I think that we went out to bid, and the lowest price bid still came back with the existing service, and the existing service is not only meeting our needs, but people seem to be satisfied with it.
Only one proposal came in.
Okay.
I can see I gotta talk to John Crook. No, with that being said,
So let's do a
Take it away.
motion to amend the resolution.
yeah,
Someone want to do that?
I'll make a motion to amend.
To remove the other two options and retain just the building inspection removal?
Correct.
Correct.
okay.
Additional whereas and all that other stuff.
Yeah, that was already included.
So, the way Misty just said it is what we're voting on. I think I'm correct.
Mhm.
So it's the can I repeat it for you guys, just so we
Sure.
all know what's going on?
Please.
So it's the resolution that's in your packet, however, we added a whereas clause that the existing contract, was determined to be, no longer sustainable for the provider. And then we struck the therefore clause at the end for the contingency funding use. We struck the therefore clause at the end that was going to divert the Healthy Neighborhoods funding. And then we added a therefore clause that authorizes the termination of the prior contract in addition to accepting this new contract.
That's right, that's my motion.
Perfect.
So we've cleaned up the language on the agreement as well as closing out previous agreements, setting a corrected agreement going forward, and then tying that back appropriately to budget.
Exactly. They're doing a budget amendment still to take the building inspection.
So we got this one first, I believe. Any other questions?
Not for me.
Okay, with that being said, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thanks, Misty.
Well, share.
Oh, that's perfect, that's good, I'm happy to share with you.
Then, will you go to the main motion? Do we have to?
Oh, I did those as friendlies. Should I?
They were all wrapped into one.
Put it all into one?
Mhm.
They were all Dan's amendment, or
See you,
Dan's
Dan.
Good
motion.
enough, okay, okay.
You bet.
Okay. That's fine. Then we're gonna move on to, resolution 209-19, a resolution approving the purchase of e-poll, these are books known as Badger books. And we need a motion.
So move?
Misty?
So this was something that was included in both the CIP and the budget for 2020. The proposal in front of you is within budget. So it's $80,000 in order to get electronic poll books. A benefit of that being it saves on some direct costs, printing and stuff like that, but it's more so a staff time savings, not having to print those and then refer to them. And that should also make it a little bit easier for the people that want to vote, and should make the lines move a little bit faster.
Okay.
Any questions, folks?
No, I think more as a housekeeping thing, this particular vendor, and I'm assuming that these particular configurations appear to be under state contract as well.
I believe so.
Mhm.
authorized by the county or the state elections commission.
Okay, no other questions? Reference this one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Next one is resolution, it's R 222-19, an annual purchase of water treatment chemicals. Need a motion?
So moved?
Misty?
This is the annual pre-approval for the chemicals we need in order to keep our water safe. We bring it just at the beginning of every year so that we're authorized for all of the payments throughout the year, so that you basically just do it all now.
Any questions about this?
No.
I don't have anything. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, carried. Next is resolution, it's R 223-19, a resolution authorizing the 2020 ESRI Enterprise License Agreement payment.
This particular
Yeah.
organization, the firm that I work for does business with.
Okay.
Even though we do not do business with the city of Fitchburg, I think it's appropriate for me to recuse myself from this vote. From a protocol perspective, should I stand down from this one in common council as well?
Likely, yes.
So we
I
do-
can't tell you what to do with it. I would just say
That would be good.
likely if you recuse yourself here.
Will do.
Any, just a motion, Danny.
It's a motion to approve.
Misty?
So this is our annual software service for the system that does our GIS system.
We did this in the budget, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes.
We've had it for several years now. Ongoing maintenance.
Was there an amendment to get rid of this?
I don't think so.
No? Okay,
No,
okay.
you might be thinking of the
No.
one neck thing, which is a,
We really
Agenda item
need
for the next
this
one.
Okay, yeah,
GIS software.
okay, yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is resolution, it's R 224-19, approving the 2020 Dane County contract for senior center services. Motion.
So moved.
Misty?
this is another annual item, so it's a contract that we have with Dane County to provide nutrition, case management, and medical assistance case management. It is a bit of an increase from last year, which is nice to see. It's based on the level of service and the number of services that we've been providing. The one thing I'd like to point out, though, is between this and then the Healthy Neighborhoods Navigators that you'll be approving later in the agenda, between those two items, we now cross the $100,000 threshold for Dane County, which means that we have to get an audit on that so for 2020 calendar year, we'll do it in 2021. So there's about a $4,000 cost to get that audit, but the money that we're gonna get in excess of the $100,000 will help offset that.
Any questions?
No.
Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Who moved to approve that one? Was
I
that you?
motion to
Okay,
approve.
thank you.
Next one is resolution, it's our 09-20 revised final resolution, exercising police powers and levy of the special assessment for the 2019 curb and gutter driveways. This was a direct referral.
I'll do a motion to approve that too. We did it in Public Works.
Misty?
So this probably looks familiar to you. You guys approved the final resolution for the same project at the end of last year. However, when they went back and after we sent out the invoices, we learned that some of the measurements weren't updated. So we're bringing back a revised one. There's a few people that were affected. I believe all of them were actually less cost to them. But we do need to go through the whole process to redo it. It's still within the 10%, so a public hearing is still not needed.
So the scope is not an increase, it's corrections for detail, but not a negative financial impact.
Not to the customers, and then
Okay.
there's no impact to the city as well. Yeah, so we write it down. And then, once staff learned of it, they did reach out to all of the people that were in there, because they'll now basically get another invoice. Letting them know that the original invoice they got is void and we're gonna start over and they can expect a new one. And then staff also reached out via phone call and in person too, to make sure people knew what was going on.
Thank you for that extra effort.
Approximately how many do you have, Misty?
That were affected or in the total?
Were affected?
I wanna say it was a dozen or so.
Oh, sorry.
A couple of them that were a little bit more significant than others, some of them were dollars, but it needed to be correct, so
Both of
we
these, most
adjusted
of
it.
these numbers went down?
They went down, the amount that we're charging to people went down.
So they got a call from the city saying their bill was going down.
Yeah, don't pay the bill we sent you because it's wrong, but it's gonna be less when we send it out again.
I don't know too many, they're
Everybody
gonna
likes
argue.
those
Yeah,
calls.
they're not gonna argue too much on that one, that I know of, no. Okay, any other questions or anything? Not? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is resolution, it's our 04-20, approving the development agreement between 3101, it was South Fish Hatchery
Yep.
Road, am I thinking right? LLC and the city of Fitchburg, this was a direct referral. Need a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Janelle, that was you that made the motion?
Yes.
Just you go ahead.
Sure, so this is a development agreement, it's part of TID 10, with the amended TID 10, which is the North Fish Hatchery Road piece of it. We do have some people here to speak, both the developer to share their project and answer any questions, and then also Frank Roman, who works for Ellers. He's basically our financial advisor that looks at the deal as well and makes sure that everything is as expected. So both of
And-
them are here to answer questions.
And I guess it's appropriate now to have them make their presentations, but I did want to add that there is a closed session if this group so chooses. Staff isn't recommending a closed session, we just put it on there in case you wanted one. And that would to discuss any terms of the agreement and how the negotiation went forward.
Okay.
We're only allowed to go into closed session to discuss negotiation, not to discuss anything additional.
Well, I'm gonna turn the question back to you. Do you feel in looking over this that there's gonna be negotiations?
Staff believes the negotiation is complete, but if you hear something in these presentations that raises a red flag and you want to talk about it in closed session, that's why it's on there.
Okay.
Okay. I guess at this point, unless you two see something I don't see, we can just go forward with it, you know, these three people. Did they want to come? All three of you? That's fine. Sure. Or,
Well, maybe let the, or
Johnny over here and
maybe let the developers go first.
okay.
I think some of you are.
Just, it's more for the public, it's, I do things a little different. I can sit here and read all this, but would you just introduce yourself and tell us who you work for, that are covered this as well?
Sure. Michael Thorson, I am Managing Director at InVenture Capital. We are the developers of the property, which will be 3101 SFH LLC, cleverly named after the address. We are managers of that as well.
I'm Ned Hoyt, Edward Hoyt. Mike and I are partners, so I'm also involved in venture capital and 3101 SFH LLC.
Did you guys want to, how did you want to proceed, I guess? Did you want to,
In the interest of time, I think if there is anyone who's not familiar with the project, we can very briefly summarize what we're trying to do and then open up for questions, or if you feel you're comfortable enough with what the project details are.
I think it might be helpful, just because we're on air and it's a public proceeding, to even take a
Sure.
minute and summarize it for the purpose, for those purposes.
Sure. So the essential project we're discussing here today is 3101 South Fitch Hatchery Road is currently the all juice site owned by Madeline's property. Our proposal is to acquire that property, demolish the existing structures, and construct a mixed-use multifamily residential with a commercial and retail component. 157 units on 4 floors of residential, atop covered parking with an environmental green roof, with bookended commercial and retail space on both the north and south ends adjacent to South Fitch Hatchery Road.
In addition to the building, we're proposing, and at the request of the city, to extend Traceway Drive to the east boundary of the property. And that will be done in conjunction with the reconstruction works on Fish Hatchery Road, so that that intersection is fully developed and should open up the possibility of development to other lands to the east as part of the 1010 district.
I was just going to add, in conjunction with some of those public works that are being done, there is residual environmental contamination on the site, which poses quite a challenge in terms of a redevelopment. One of the additional reasons why we are requesting the TIF proposal. That includes leaking underground storage tanks from the mid-90s that were removed, but the petroleum contamination from those tanks was never completely remediated. And there is an existing deed restriction on the site capping it, that we are working with the DNR through this process to redevelop and recap the site.
Have we had the opportunity to do any discovery with the efforts and costs associated with those contamination issues?
In regards to cost for cleanup,
Yes.
no, because the site will not be totally cleaned up. Some of the area will be capped. So it's sort of difficult to determine the amount of work yet moving forward, because depending on where the materials are and where the capping takes place, the prices could vary.
Got it.
You know, my thinking rate is this, where I see the fences up around right now on Fish Hatchery Road.
Yep.
I know the site, okay, that's where
It's
The old juice plant.
it's.
across from the Plesco, the new
The old
Plesco
juice
Senior
plant.
House, across from Nine Springs, that's right. Yeah.
And is it the area that, correct me if I'm wrong, the area that is fenced off? That total area? There's a fence around, if you know what I'm referring to.
There's a construction fence.
The
Construction.
entirety of that site will be redeveloped, and I think they've just put a fence up to keep people out of it, because it's at that sort of stage of, being ready to knock down, that you just didn't want people wandering in off the street and having a wander around an old manufacturing facility.
Did this come to the plan commission? I think it did.
It's,
I think
we,
it
there was some
did.
discussion
we have done
a
the,
couple meetings ago.
A couple meetings ago.
we had an initial pre-app submittal of that plan, and then
It
the
happened in
last
October
plan
25.
commission, we did another
So this,
presentation as well.
okay, let's talk two things, Pat, you probably know. One is, in the city's future, we're looking at a stop and go light at that intersection.
Yep, that's part of the Fish Hatchery Road reconstruction, and then they mentioned the completion of Traceway.
Okay.
So we'll be doing that intersection, that'll be fully signalized. We'll do the work within the city right-of-way, and then the developer will finish the road Traceway to the back of their property as part of the same project.
That's not coming out on sign or anything, it's just going, just
Uh,
kind of through,
Just to
right?
the edge
For
of
the
our property.
time, yes.
Okay, and why? No, go ahead, any other questions? You guys?
Well, I guess, I'm just kind of curious. So you said that there's commercial on the bottom and then maybe some livable units on top. Is that kind of what we're looking at?
That's correct. I don't believe your packet has the submittal from the GFP. So if you were to look at it from Fish Hatchery Road to the east, there's significant grade differential between the northern part of the site to the bottom. It's about 14 feet differential. So that presents some challenges, but what we've done is we've got bookends on the site of about 5,000 square feet of commercial and retail on either end.
Okay.
It doesn't connect all the way across because of the grades, but we have it on either end.
Are you able to tell me, maybe you're not, I don't know, are you able to tell me, like, what commercial retail is gonna be there, or can't you not?
We would love to be able to tell you what commercial, what we can tell you that we will be there.
Okay,
So
good.
our firm is moving our offices there.
Okay, well, that's, sounds like commercial to me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think there's some basic drawings on page 351,
Okay, 351.
351, 352, et cetera.
Thanks, Janelle.
And I believe that's of the council packet, correct? Or is that in finance too?
I think it's in finance.
Okay, good.
Oh, yeah, okay.
This is Fish Hatchery Road. So those are the plats for Fish Hatchery Road and Traceway, but I do think council packet has the other
The elevation
projects, so-
drawings of the building?
More the 3D.
Yep, and Mike Zimmerman has actually gone to get some in case you want to see him here.
The other thing was this to be kind of coincide with Fish Hatchery Road, and not really, as far as Fish Hatchery Road being redone, and then this development?
It was just,
Kinda separate.
it was a nice timing scenario from that perspective, but, no, it wasn't planned that way, you know, a year ago. The, developer would obviously like to build during the construction phase because, it's a good time to build, and then when the road's complete, their facility will be complete. So it'll be a nice lease-up period.
When you guys bring out permits per se, does this have to also pass the DNR?
There are different aspects that we've had to do, so we did a adjustment, major amendment to the environmental corridor, and that's been sort of approved. There was no actual requirement to make a new sewage discharge application because we're actually reducing the discharge relative to what was coming out of the existing plant, but we have had to work through them, with them on several dimensions to get the approvals in place.
So we have a letter of understanding that our conceptual plans for redeveloping the site meet their requirements in order to lift the deed restriction on the title at the moment. And we will submit a material management plan with them, with a case closure following construction.
Okay. Oh, no, I was, are we gonna do a presentation on the finances?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with a separate presentation. Oh, okay, well, good. I didn't know, that's what I wanted to just look at.
Yeah, I can bring it.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Do we have a click to share?
Thank
We
you.
could plug it in.
Yeah, here, Mike, why don't you plug it in here so that the public can see it?
I don't know if I have the right toggle.
Otherwise, I
I
can do
am.
it. I have it.
Okay, great.
So
Misty,
Don, no,
I think
okay.
Misty's got to do it.
I can do it.
Set up setting up click share, click
Yeah,
share.
you need to set that up on your
Oh,
computer.
okay.
Just need to turn it on. It just takes a second to load.
It's okay. No.
We'll get it here.
It's preparing.
Here it is. And that's a view from the south looking north.
Looking northeast,
That's
yeah.
correct.
So you can see the grade there to some degree. So the bottom right sort of corner is the lower commercial, which, as you go sort of north along sort of Fish Hatchery, gradually that level goes to be underground. So you have underground parking sort of as you get north, whereas on the left side, which would be the northwest sort of corner, you've got basically a two-story commercial structure designed to have some presence on the corner of Fish Hatchery and Traceway.
There's probably the next slide is a better,
And the offices would be in the commercial you see on the south side of the building, correct?
So-
Ours would be, yeah.
Yeah.
we would anticipate more professional services and that type of firm on that southern kind of lower portion, whereas we think prominently here at the Traceway intersection, this could be a nice area for a restaurant or bar and grill or some other sort of more consumer-facing retail.
First, looking at that then, if, it's coming back to me now, there's commercial, would there be commercial on both ends of the building? For whatever here and on the other end too, and the
Yes.
and then your apartments in the middle?
That's
Correct.
And where this body is, this person is, that actually would be like Traceway Drive going to the east,
That's correct.
correct?
There's sidewalk along Traceway, yes.
Right here.
And then that would be, would that would dead end, that doesn't have anything to do with Valley View, does it?
No.
The apartment to the north? No, okay, okay.
So we're separated by the Nine Springs at our southern, or you mean the further north up by Post Road and Index Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're
Separate,
separate.
yeah.
The expectation is that Traceway will eventually go around to meet Post Road, but the exact shape and format of that will be driven both by what individual landowners choose to do, but also the visioning process that the city has been going through in terms of guiding that development process.
You know, one of the questions that's been brought up on other projects is what kind of residents we're expecting here, and it really comes more from a position of, for example, if these were seniors, to make sure that we've got appropriate bus services and things of that nature. What do you envision in that space?
We would not, especially given the Plesco kind of dedicated senior housing right across the street, we would not expect that we would be competing for, potential tenants from that demographic pool. We think that this is going to be very similar to our other buildings in our portfolio. It's very much a 25 to 35-year-old demographic. Young, single, we would see young couples potentially, and maybe we probably have, less than five, somewhere between 5 and 10% of our demographic at our most recent project, which is called Garber Point, would be young couples with small children. We tend to see that throughout. This is kind of a young, knowledge-based community and town and demographic area. And throughout our entire portfolio, that's who we see rent. We start to see some of the more larger units become empty nester type. We did see that at Garver. We have not really seen that in our downtown projects, but more towards the perimeter. We would expect that would be an attractive downsizing element with still fairly large size and at rents that are both affordable and of good value for the type of project that we build versus some others.
Thank you.
We confirmed with city staff that there are bus stops just on either side of Traceway as well. And we've provided a significant amount of bike parking and things like that, in addition to be sure that there's a range of transportation options available for residents.
One of the things that we've seen at the most recent completed project, which I alluded to before, Garver, it's almost 25% of our tenants do not own a vehicle. So it is also on a bus line, it is also right on a bike path, but it seems to be, it's such a bikeable area, Madison in general, that we have a significant portion of our tenants who just don't own a vehicle anymore. One of the amenities that we are testing out at Garver is a program called Zerology. It's a startup company. And what they do is they're basically car rental with electric vehicles. And at Garver, we have two of our indoor parking stalls dedicated to their vehicles. They're in the process of testing out their app and technology now, but we've seen a fair bit of anecdotal interest from tenants when they see these, that, oh, wow, there are going to be cars we can rent part-time. They're electric right in the garage. So we would expect that if that were to be successful, and again, it's a startup company, most of them fail, but if it turns out to be a successful pilot at Garver, we would do a similar here.
Any other questions or anything? These guys?
I'm good.
Right now, I'm good.
Yeah, I think just a conversation around the finances, right?
I don't want to overlook introducing you, so could you introduce yourself?
Certainly.
Background.
Frank Roman with Ehlers and Associates. We're the financial advisors to the city of Fitchburg. We've been engaged to look at the financial projections by InVenture on the project. We go through costs, financial returns, market rates, et cetera, to make sure that the project, the request for the assistance is reasonable and provides the developer a certain return, but does not vastly exceed what we would look at market norms to be. So in this instance, Mike and Ned have indicated that there are certain challenges on the site, grading, environmental, et cetera. Also the extension of Traceway and burying utility lines along Fitchhatchery Road are included in this as well. The request for the assistance in this case was a municipal revenue obligation or a pay-as-you-go bond, and what that is instead of the city issuing debt and providing those funds up front, the assistance is paid over time as the developer produces value over the current base value of the juice plant, which is about $2 million. So anything above that number, the property taxes, a portion of that is reimbursed to the developer to assist in some of these costs. So in this case, we've the agreement has been for 66.5%, 2/3 to be provided to the developer after the city covers its costs on administrative expenses, and a holdback of that, 33% for project costs. Within the TID, within the tax increment district, and also Wisconsin TID law allows you to make expenditures within 1/2 mile of the radius of the tax increment boundaries. So with Fitchhatchery Road being constructed, some other things going on, the city has some funds to contribute towards that and help advance some of their plans to do so as well. The proposal was for a pay-as-you-go assistance, and it was basically structured in two pieces. $500,000 is allocated towards the Traceway extension and the utility work at the intersection there, and $3 million is contemplated for the assistance for the project for other, the other extraordinary expenses and the financial returns on the project. One of the statutes for TIF law is it has to meet called the but-for test. That but for the assistance being provided, this project would not move forward in its current capacity, the quality and the timing that is contemplated. So our summary report was provided as an attachment in your packet, although I know the packet was pretty extensive. I'll just go back to the end of that, where we looked at the two different types of returns that we generally look at, internal rate of return and cash on cash. So cash on cash is just basically the proceeds to the developer after paying the expenses of the property and paying the debt service associated with the mortgage. That net proceeds to the developer divided by their equity investment. So it's an annual snapshot as to what that project is doing per year. The internal rate of return, or the IRR, is a calculation over time. It contemplates the initial investment of the equity, the annual cash flows that come to the developer over that period, and then also the net sales proceeds at a time of either 10 years of investment period or an earlier sale of the project. So that contemplates the time value of money. So that the general market ranges we've seen have been between probably 11% or so up to 16 to 18% right now in this market. The IRR that we calculated on this for a 10-year term was a bit less than 10%. So it's not exceeding values by any stretch of the imagination. In our development agreements, we generally recommend a provision called a look back, which states that the city's providing a certain financial assistance to the developer to get this project going. You said that you would be comfortable at a 10% return going in for this on an IRR basis. You usually put an upper threshold of several percent to allow the developer to make a fair profit, but anything vastly exceeding that then gets reanalyzed, and some of the assistance can be dialed back so that it's still providing a reasonable market return, but not an excessive return. It's not unduly enriching the developer. Because they have to not only pay off their mortgage debt, but they also have to pay a return to their equity investors as well. So, long and short, if the contemplated assistance was not provided to them, the cash-on-cash returns would be below 5%, which is way below what investors would generally consider to be reasonable as a starting point. Likewise, the internal rate of return would have been about 6.5%, which again is vastly below what investors would consider. My background includes raising the debt and equity for New York Stock Exchange listed development companies and also local Milwaukee development companies. So these returns without financial assistance would not move forward.
Let me repeat this so it's
All
clear
of
in
it?
my head, maybe clear for those that may be paying attention. So really what we've got is we've got this parcel, and this parcel is generating a certain amount of tax on behalf of the city. Along with that parcel, we have probably somewhere around 3 challenges. If we looked at making changes to that, one of them is a cleanup. We've got some grading issues, and we've got some potential traffic management related issues. All of those things would need to be addressed.
Well, and you have demolition of a blighted property also.
Okay, so we've got all of these things that anybody that's gonna come in and look at improving that parcel would need to factor. So from the city's perspective, there's an opportunity for us to have a increased tax base. From the developer's perspective, there's opportunities as well, but we need to find a way to work together in a partnership to address these infrastructure issues that would need to come forward to really any organization that was looking at doing this.
Yes.
So at the end of it, we've gained a tax improvement. They found an opportunity, and then we've really got some pretty probably complex math that's part of making that come together. Is that the gist of it?
Very well done, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You mentioned the current value of the property versus what will be developed. Currently, the juice plant's on the books about 1.9 million or so. The property is estimated to value coming out of the box at about 26 million.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a $24 million increase in value right there.
Yep.
And the taxes that go along with that, of course.
And they're also addressing a very challenged site. I mean, we all look at what Fish Hatchery Road is now and what we want Fish Hatchery Road to be, and the new project will fit much better with the vision going long-term.
Yeah, we really see this project as a catalyst for redevelopment along Fish Hatchery Road. We'd like to see other projects be the mirror image, per se, moving forward, and there's a lot of property that's underutilized on that corridor, undervalued, per se, per the market, and we believe this is a great seed project.
I don't recall, but does this have to go through Carpsey or the county at all? Because of
Just-
Fish Hatchery Road?
No, not because of Fitch Hatchery Road. It did have to go through Carpsey because of the environmental corridor that needed to be altered. I presented, and the developers presented the case to Carpsey. It was approved at Carpsey and then approved at the DNR as of today.
So, I don't know how deep you wanted to go on this, but just to summarize briefly, you know, we've done an extensive review of the project, the financial returns, the validation of the assumptions. That's translated into the negotiation of a development agreement, which is also in your package. There's been extensive negotiations on the development agreement amongst city staff, city attorney, ourselves, and the developers. We've come to an agreement that we believe, I think we all believe, is a fair representation of the deal and the way to get this moving forward.
You know, the big question for me is risk, right? I mean, any one of these 4 issues that we need to deal with on this parcel is potentially gonna have some wild card elements associated with the cost of making that parcel ready for this project. How does the risk piece get managed?
If I may, and you guys may want to step into this at some point if you want, but, you know, there's so much.
I could answer that question. So
Sure.
we are assuming that risk by default, in terms of we are taking on the kind of agreement with the city that if this thing doesn't get developed, we are not going to be furnished any TIF. If it does not get developed, we are going to be personally on the hook for recourse and full guarantees to a lender. We would expect to have, you know, 75% of the project costs provided by a mortgagee, of which they will ask both Ned and I to personally guarantee. So risks for this are being borne not by the city, but primarily by us as developers. We are comfortable with these risks because we've done this before. This is not our first project. This will be our 5th. We have a portfolio that has over 450 units. There's not a single vacancy. 0. So we think we know what we're doing. We're not trying to recreate the wheel. We've done a very similar project just most recently at Garber Point, 161 units. 4 floors of residential, covered environmental green roof over covered parking at grade. That has been wildly successful. We went from opening to 100% occupancy on the residential side in 4 months. So we think we know what we're doing. We're going to build a very similar type of product here. That is not a cheap proposition, but it is what we think fits in the market. We have done our market research. We have a solid base of investors behind us. In addition, Ned and I both are significant parts of the equity stack to build this. So from a risk standpoint, we think we've mitigated all of the major components. And then, but for the assistance, I'll tell you very bluntly, without it, we would never contemplate even doing this project. So thank you to the city and the staff that have worked with us very diligently over the last 5 or 6 months to put this all together, but we think this is going to be a very nice addition to this part and this redevelopment of the whole corridor.
I've hit some of the highlights. I don't know if there's anything further that you needed from my side, but like I said, this has been extensively reviewed and negotiated, and, you know, before the shovel hits the ground, you know, the lender's gonna do their due diligence. The developer's obviously done all kinds of due diligence to mitigate their own risk on that as well. When it goes through planning commission and DNR and everything else, I mean, there's so many eyes on this that by the time it gets ready to go, it's been fairly well vetted. Then it's just construction risk and and leasing, but with the markets that you have here, the quality of the community that you have in Fitchburg, the demand for housing here, all signs look to be a very successful project.
Thank you for doing your diligence on this. I think part of what we do here is try to put these partnerships in place, and we've got some really committed and talented people. But part of what we do in this particular meeting is just double check and vet that out, and then also have that be in public record. So we're kind of clear about the partnership and what it means, and so that's where some of my questions came from, is to assure the public that, you know, as lovely as this project seems, that we're clear that these things would have needed to be done with any project that would have gone into that area, and the math and why that math is, you know, not only the opportunity, but how we support that project from a tax perspective.
The challenge is there nonetheless. It's the developer who has the capacity and the wherewithal to address those.
There wasn't, I believe you touched on it, you might have it in the sheet right here too, all apartments, there's no condos or seniors in there, it's all pretty much apartments, right?
Market
One
rate
or two bedroom
apartments.
or whatever they may be,
1, 2, 3, yeah,
1, 2, 3.
2.5.
Whatever, okay. And I did hear you say it's pay as you go.
Yes. So again, they have to create the value to generate the taxes to get the partial return on that. So the onus is on the developer to create that.
Any other questions? Anybody?
Not for me.
I'm comfortable.
Anything, Danny?
Feeling good, feeling okay.
I'm good. No,
I think it's a good project.
It's-
It seems like something we need.
Who
that
said we
area.
needed a hotel?
I want a hotel.
Let's scratch that one.
You don't want a hotel?
That's a
Scratch that for right now, that comment. Okay, no, I don't have any, I remember a lot of this on planning, when I think about it. But any other comments you folks have, or did you have, questions? Now's the time.
Nope, I'm done.
Gosh, I touched on that too. Pat, if this is approved, I know I touched on this, but just clarify it for me. Could they start in the spring when Fish Hatchery Road even is going on too?
Yeah, they'll construct in conjunction with Fish Hatchery Road, but I believe they would start proceeding any sort of work on Fish Hatchery Road. The developer's ready, if all approvals are in place and the closing occurs without any, I guess if it occurs seamlessly, they'll proceed with demolition fairly quickly.
Yeah.
It's all gated off, ready to go.
So just as a point of housekeeping, I believe we've got a line item on here giving us the option of going into a closed session. I personally don't feel the need for that.
No. I had a question, you know, it's a good project. This part of the city, as I've talked about, and we've talked about it, you know, we're just trying to redevelop there, you know, and so, I'd say maybe about 10 months ago or a year ago, I was kind of concerned, you know, that, geez, are we gonna be able to get stuff, you know, new entities and amenities, up there, and so.
With the brand that we want up on that corridor.
Right, yeah, no, I mean, and people talk about it's the face of the city and things like that, and so, you know, we're trying to make it the face of the city. We need good development, and so, you know,
I'll be the first to say that the TID is looking better.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, I think so.
And I think the math is smart.
Yeah, I like the way they're doing it, the way it's set up. I had a chance to talk to Pat about some of the opportunities up there. It's looking better, for sure.
That,
Might,
Well,
maybe you
this
could bring
is-
some other folks with you.
Yeah, that'd be good.
it's your
We've
district.
got,
No, it's not, it's
We've
District
got
3.
plans,
Oh, I'm
we
sorry.
got more plans.
Not even close down.
One at a time.
One at a time. One at a time.
So if you don't need the closed session, we could just vote on this now and then skip.
No,
the
we will,
next
that's where I was
vote.
going.
Or-
There's no reason to have a closed session, I don't think, unless there's something that you two
No.
have.
I
I
think
don't.
that we're all in agreement on
I
what we need for a
wasn't-
closed session.
Gonna do anything with the closed session, as far as I'm concerned. Any other, that's why I'm pushing, any other questions or anything? I don't,
No, I think we've got what, this vote, one more piece of business, and we've got a council meeting in 10 minutes.
aware. I'm aware. If there's nothing else, it was moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, gentlemen, all three of
Thank
you.
you, gentlemen.
Pleasure to do now. Appreciate it.
You can actually.
Um, I believe we have our last one, I got it right. Resolution R 1820, a resolution approval, a contract with Dane County to accept the 2020 neighborhood, funding, and this was a direct referral.
We need a motion first.
Need a motion.
So moved.
Misty, or,
Best for last.
yeah,
Basically, this is a
You took the word right out of
there you
my
go,
mouth.
there you go. A resolution to approve a contract with Dane County to accept funding in 2020 for our Neighborhood Navigator program. We initiated the program in 2019. I think we had some successes. Certainly, we can build off that program in 2020. But again, no cost to the city. We're essentially getting $20,000 to fund 2 part-time positions under our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative, to really have our residents connect with our navigators, connect residents with services, get feedback that will ultimately help inform city policy. So again, kind of an extension of what we did in 2019.
Okay.
any questions,
No,
Wayne? No, I think,
improved
I don't
services,
have
no more
anything.
money.
no.
That sounds okay.
What's at
That
the audit
sounds-
cost? Don't forget the audit cost, but it's minimal.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's minimal, given what we're doing and what the other costs are.
Okay, we'll move forward. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And the last item on our agenda was, our next meeting is January the 28th. I believe same time, same location, unless you hear different. And
Are we
no,
thinking 6 or
6:30.
6:30? Our usual
6:30.
time.
That's my fault. It's usual time. At this point, unless it changes, 6:30.
What a gentleman you are.
Sure.
With that, I need a motion to
So moved.
move to second, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.